Chances are you've never heard of Bill McRaven, but you know his work. A Navy SEAL for 37 years, he became the head of the U.S. Special Operations Command. He was in charge of the missions that captured Saddam Hussein and killed Osama bin Laden. And now he's written a jewel of a book called Make Your Bed, Little Things That Can Change Your Life and the World. We interviewed him after the chemical attack in Syria, but before President Trump's response. Here's our Power Player of the Week. Bill, welcome to Fox News Sunday.
Thank you, Chris.
It's an honor to have you.
It's great to be here.
As the commander of the missions that rescued Captain Phillips, that found and killed bin Laden, what's the secret of success? What is the key to pulling these things off?
Yeah, I think you have to rely on a lot of great people. I mean, obviously, I didn't do this on my own. I had great operators working for me in every case. You have to be able to reach out, find those that are really experts in their field, the helicopter pilots, the fighter pilots, the SEALs on the ground, the Delta operators, the Rangers, draw on their experience and then make the best decision you can to move forward.
In your book, and we're going to talk about that more in a minute, you talk about SEAL training. You were a SEAL for 37 years. And how brutal it is. Hell Week, 6 days of just extraordinary exercises on basically no sleep. Does it have to be that tough?
If their combat experience and if their success in combat is in the indication, the traditions, if you will, and the standards we've had in place for many, many years have paid huge dividends, and I think they'll continue to march out smartly with those.
You had, what, 150 people in your class, and 33 made it through?
Correct.
And from your experience in the field as a SEAL, do you need that kind of training to make it in the real world? In
the real world of being a Navy SEAL, you do. I mean, part of this is a recognition that you're going out and you're going to select not just the fastest and the strongest. You're going to select that individual that can, one, think critically, that can ensure that in the tough times they are going to get through. So you will see, we had a young man in our class who was a remarkable runner. I think he was close to a 4-minute mile in high school, and yet we had an officer that was a little faster than he was. And so you found as time went on that it really wasn't about the fastest and the strongest. It was really about those kids that never, ever gave up. And that's part of the points we bring out in the book, is that just don't give up, and you'll find a way to success.
You're now Chancellor of the University of Texas System, 14 institutions, about 250,000 students that you're educating. And in 2014, you delivered a commencement speech that went viral. 10 million views online. Here's a clip.
If you make your bed every morning, you will have accomplished the first task of the day. It will give you a small sense of pride, and it will encourage you to do another task, and another, and another. And by the end of the day, that one task completed will have turned into many tasks completed.
If you want to change the world, make your bed, and that is the title of this book. It's little, but it's got wonderful life lessons in it. What's the message?
I think the lessons are universal. It doesn't make any difference whether you ever spend any time in the military. It doesn't make any difference about your race or your ethnicity or your orientation. These are important lessons. Don't quit. Stand up to the bullies. Have a little bit of discipline in your life.
Right. Make your bed. Why is that so important?
Well, I think it is one of these tasks that really does get your day started off right. I mean, my mother and my father ensured that before I went to school every morning, I made my bed. And then in the military, of course, they really reinforce that. And it's a number of things. It is about the first task of the day, doing the first task of the day right, and recognizing also that little things matter.
One of your stories, lessons, is about a Ranger named Adam Bates.
Right.
What's the lesson there?
Well, Adam Bates, young Ranger, he was on his first tour in Afghanistan, stepped on a pressure plate IED and lost both his legs. And I really think what Adam Bates represents, frankly, is all the soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines that were wounded in Iraq and Afghanistan and other places. I never, ever met a single soldier who didn't say, I want to get back to my unit. Some of them missing legs, missing arms. They always wanted to get back to their unit. And Adam never gave up. And to this day, he has carried on. He's got a great life. And again, it's representative of all those great young men and women that served in Iraq and Afghanistan.
I've been trying to get you to sit down for an interview for several years now, since We first met back in 2014, and I'm going to take this opportunity to ask you about some questions. Back in 2015, you said, if we really mean to beat ISIS, we got to put more boots on the ground there. When you look at the situation in Iraq, in Syria, do we need more?
Well, I'm always very cautious about old retired guys like me trying to make an assessment of the tactical situation on the ground. Having said that, I think if you look back a year, March or so of last year, the United States, really began a more serious effort, I think, in going after ISIS. And I think that was the right thing to do. I credit President Obama for realizing that we needed a little bit of a change in the plan. He did that, and of course, President Trump has continued that and looks to be accelerating that. And I think what we'll see is the acceleration of the decline of ISIS. So I think both presidents deserve some credit in how they are attacking this problem.
Different issues, same country, Syria. When you look at this horrific chemical attack on the rebel-held town in northern Syria by the Assad regime, is there anything we can do?
There are some options out there, everything from a no-fly zone, but it is difficult, and we have looked at that before. The potential to do a no-fly zone means you may come in contact with the Syrian Air Force or the Russian Air Force. So I think we have to be a little bit cautious, but clearly something needs to be done. We cannot just sit by and see this mass migration and see the carnage that is occurring in Syria and do nothing.
I didn't realize until this week that you graduated from the University of Texas with a degree in journalism. I can't understand how you went so wrong and decided it was more important to become a Navy SEAL and defend our nation. But when President Trump tweeted in February that much of the media are, in his words, quote, the enemy of the American people, your journalistic hackles went up and you said this.
The news media is the enemy of the American people. This sentiment may be the greatest threat to democracy in my lifetime.
That's pretty strong language coming from somebody who's seen the threats you've seen. Greater threat than the Soviet Union? Greater threat than radical Islam?
I think those threats really kind of brought us together. So when you looked at the strikes in 9/11 and the threat from the Soviet Union, this really brought us together as democracy, I think. So when I talk about the media, when the media is referred to as the enemy of the American people, both myself and the President and others swore an oath to the Constitution of the United States. And the First Amendment of that Constitution is freedom of the press. So the reason that I expressed some concern was that when the President of the United States says that the media is the enemy of the American people, to me that undermines a little bit of the Constitution. So I do think it is a tremendous threat to our democracy. But there's a second part of that clip that you should run, which is where I told the journalism students that they also have an obligation. So in order for the media really to be seen as more truthful, one, the journalists have to check their facts. Also, leave your bias at the door. So yes, I do think anybody that says that the media is the enemy of the American people is not right. I have been raked over the coals by the media, but I will tell you, I think it is the single most important thing for this democracy.
Finally, I want to ask you about your job as Chancellor of UT, because you have laid out what you call a path for change at UT, including what you call 9 quantum leaps. And one of them I'm fascinated by. You want to start a mandatory course for every one of those 250,000 students on American leadership. What do you hope to accomplish?
The fundamentals of leadership, I think, really are ethics. How do you do things to ensure that you are, I said there's 3 things. You have to be moral, legal, and ethical. In all of our decisions, we must be moral, legal, and ethical. So we need to understand ethics in business, ethics in politics, ethics in the military. It's also recognizing that we need our young men and women to learn how to function in a group environment. How do you lead a small group? What are the qualities of leadership that we see in great business leaders, great politicians, great military men and women? So these are the sort of things we want to teach in the leadership curriculum.
Well, you are an exemplar of that. Bill McRaven, thank you. Thank you for your lifetime of service.
My pleasure.
Thank you for your friendship, sir.
Thank you, sir.
And we'll be right back with a final word.